Santa Fe is one of those places that people think they understand after just one visit.
And then they move here and realize this city is a lot more specific than it looks from the outside.
Because Santa Fe is not just beautiful, it's layered. It has its own pace, its own rules, its own housing quirks, its own culture, and its own way of living that pulls people in fast.
But that same uniqueness is also exactly why it's not the right fit for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, some people move here and they feel like they found the place they were supposed to be all along.
And then other people get here and they realize they love Santa Fe as an idea more than they actually loved it as a lifestyle.
So, in this video, we're not going to be giving you the postcard version.
We're giving you the real guide to moving to Santa Fe. What daily life feels like, what it costs, how the market works, what surprises people, which areas live differently, and how to know if this city actually fits you before you make a big move.
So, if Santa Fe is on your radar and you want the full picture from locals who live this every day, let's go.
What's up, everybody? We're Brian and Benjamin Tercero. We're local brothers and realtors here in the beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And if this is your first time on this channel, what we do is help people understand what it's actually like to live in Santa Fe, not just visit here, so that they can make smart, well-informed decisions when it's time to move.
Because Santa Fe is one of those places that gets marketed a lot, talked about a lot, and romanticized a lot. And to be fair, a lot of that is earned.
It is beautiful. It is cultural, it is slower, it is different, but it also has real trade-offs, real costs, real quirks, and a very specific rhythm people need to understand before they make the move.
So in this video, we're walking you through the full picture, why people are drawn here, what daily life actually feels like, what it costs to live here, how the market works, how different areas of Santa Fe live differently, and the things that catch people off guard once they get here.
So, whether you're relocating full-time, buying a second home, retiring here, or just seriously exploring Santa Fe as your next move, this video is designed to help you see the city clearly before you make a big decision.
Let's get to it.
Let's start with the real reason Santa Fe gets on people's radar in the first place, because usually it's not the house, it's not square footage, it's not interest rates, and honestly, it's not even New Mexico necessarily, it's a feeling. For a lot of people, Santa Fe starts as a curiosity. Maybe they visit for a long weekend, maybe they come for the art, the food, the plaza, Canyon Road, the opera, or just the history. Or maybe someone just told them, trust me, you have to go see Santa Fe at least once. And then somewhere during that trip, something just clicks, almost like the city's calling them home. They notice the light, they notice the pace, they notice that the city feels older, more rooted, and more specific than most places they've ever been. And they start imagining what life would feel like if their normal routine had more of this in it. That's usually how it begins, because Santa Fe doesn't pull people in the same way a lot of other cities do. It's not pulling people in with speed or scale or hype. It's not saying, come here because everything's bigger, newer, louder, and faster. It's actually almost the opposite. People start looking at Santa Fe because they want a different relationship with their day-to-day life. They want more beauty built into ordinary life. They want a place with real character. They want culture that doesn't feel manufactured. They want a city where dinner can still feel like an experience, where being outside is just part of the routine, and where life doesn't feel like it's constantly trying to outrun itself. And that is a very different motivation than what drives a lot of moves. The Santa Fe is not primarily a job-driven market. It's a lifestyle-driven market. A lot of people moving here are doing it because of choice, not because they got transferred here. They're coming from places like Phoenix, Dallas, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Denver, Chicago, or the Northeast. And they're comparing Santa Fe not just to where they live, but to how they want their life to feel next. And that distinction matters, because when people move for a lifestyle, they evaluate cities very differently. They're not just asking, can I live there? They're asking, do I want that pace? Do I want that environment? Do I want my normal Tuesday to feel more like that? And Santa Fe answers those questions in a way that is very unusual. It still feels like a real place. It still has identity. It has memory. It has architecture that actually belongs here. It has traditions that are still very much alive. It has neighborhoods that feel distinct. It has a real cultural center of gravity. And in a time when a lot of cities are starting to feel very interchangeable, that matters. Santa Fe is one of those rare places where the physical environment, the history, the food, the art, and the daily rhythm all reinforce each other. The city knows who it is. It's not trying to reinvent itself every 5 minutes to keep up with whatever trend is moving through the country. That gives people a kind of relief that they don't always expect. Because once you've lived in enough places that feel generic or overly built around convenience or constantly in motion, there's something powerful about a place that feels grounded. And then there's the practical side of the appeal. Santa Fe gives people a lot of what they want from a lifestyle without requiring them to give up everything else. You still have strong restaurants, a serious art scene, live music, healthcare access for a city this size, walkable pockets, a real outdoor lifestyle, and enough going on culturally that life doesn't feel thin once the vacation feeling wears off. And that is a really big deal, because a lot of beautiful places are great for 3 days and then they start to flatten out. Santa Fe usually does the opposite. It gets more interesting the more you understand it. And that's why so many people end up seriously considering a move here. Not because Santa Fe is trying to be everything to everyone, but because for the right person, it starts to feel like an answer to a question they've already been asking. What if life could feel a little more intentional? And that is usually where the Santa Fe conversation really begins.
Once Santa Fe gets on people's radar, the next question is not really about the city in theory. It's about daily life. What does it actually feel like to live here once the trip is over? The boxes are unpacked and this is no longer a place you visit, but it's a place you wake up in. And I think that's where Santa Fe either really starts to make sense for people or it doesn't. Because daily life here feels very different than daily life in a lot of other places people move from. The first difference is pace. Santa Fe is slower, but not in a lazy way and not in a way that feels empty. It just doesn't run on the same level of urgency that a lot of the bigger cities do. Your day is usually not built around traffic, constant noise, long commutes, or the feeling that everything takes more effort than it should. You can run errands here without it becoming a full strategic operation. You can go to lunch, stop by the grocery store, swing through the plaza or the rail yard, and still have your afternoon feel intact. That sounds simple, but for a lot of people, it's a major quality of life shift. It changes how your day feels in your body. The second thing people notice is that the environment actually supports the lifestyle. In a lot of places, being outside is something you plan around. Here, it's just normal. You wake up and the weather is often good enough to take a walk, sit outside with your coffee, hike a trail, or open the windows for a while. The light is strong, the air feels clean, the mountains are always there. And because Santa Fe is compact, a lot of that natural beauty stays close to your daily life instead of it being somewhere you have to drive an hour to reach. That's one of the reasons people's routines change here without really trying. They spend more time outside. They walk more, they make more casual plans, they sit on patios longer, they start structuring life a little less around speed and a little more around enjoyment. And that's not just a vacation feeling. For the right person, that becomes the new normal. The other part of daily life here is that Santa Fe has enough substance to keep life interesting without making it feel overloaded. You've got good restaurants, you've got the farmers market, you've got galleries, museums, live music, community events, Canyon Road, the plaza, the opera, and a cultural calendar that gives the year some shape. But it doesn't feel like a city that is always yelling for your attention. And that matters because some places are active but exhausting. Santa Fe is active in a way that's way more intentional. There's usually enough going on that life has texture, but not so much that it feels chaotic. So you can have a really full life here without feeling overstimulated by it. And socially, that matters too. Santa Fe isn't really a place built around constant nightlife or endless novelty. It's more relationship based than that. You find your coffee spots, your restaurants, your routines. You start recognizing people. The city gets more familiar over time, and for a lot of people, that familiarity is part of what starts making it feel like home. Now, that said, daily life here is not for everybody. And if you need constant speed, constant stimulation, or the feeling that there's always something louder, newer, or bigger happening, Santa Fe may start to feel too small for you. But if what you want is a city where ordinary life feels more livable, more beautiful, and less crowded, Santa Fe can feel like a real upgrade, because that's the thing people often discover after they move here. The magic of Santa Fe is not just in the big moments, it's not just in the sunsets, the galleries, the architecture, or the holiday season. It's the normal moments. A Tuesday morning coffee, a quick walk in your neighborhood, a run to the market that turns into lunch, a dinner that lasts way longer than expected, a drive home with the sangres lit up in the background. That's what daily life here actually feels like. And if that rhythm sounds good to you, then the next thing to understand is why Santa Fe feels so different from almost anywhere else in the world.
One of the most important things to understand about Santa Fe is that it does not feel different by accident. It feels different because it is different. And I don't mean that in a branding sense. I mean that this city has a depth, a history, and a level of identity that is pretty much impossible to replicate. A lot of places can be beautiful. A lot of places can be walkable for a few blocks. A lot of places can have a decent food scene or a few galleries and then market themselves as unique. Santa Fe goes much deeper than that. This is one of the oldest cities in the United States, and you feel that almost immediately. Not just because of the history books, but because the city still carries its age in a lived way. The streets do not always move with modern efficiency. The plaza still feels like the center of gravity. The architecture still reflects the materials, the climate, and the traditions of this place. And the city has done something a lot of cities fail to do, which is protect its identity while still continuing to evolve. Now, that matters so much more than we might realize, because in a lot of cities, the longer they grow, the more generic they become. They start losing the things that made them distinct in the first place. And Santa Fe has resisted that. It still looks like Santa Fe. It still moves like Santa Fe. It still has a visual language and a cultural language that are tied to this place specifically. And then there is the layering. As Santa Fe is not one story, it's many stories living on top of each other at the same time. Indigenous history here is not background material. It is active, present, and foundational. Spanish and Mexican influences are woven into the city's architecture, traditions, religion, food, and daily life. Then you have the Anglo, artistic, and modern layers that came later, all adding to the city without flattening what came before. That gives Santa Fe a kind of gravity. You feel it in the art, you feel it in the markets, you feel it in the food, you feel it in the feast days, the local rituals, the architecture, the galleries, the museums, and the fact that this city does not come across like it was built last decade and then decorated to seem interesting. It already is interesting. And that's a big part of why Santa Fe feels so different from other lifestyle markets. It does not just have amenities, it has substance. The art scene is one of the clearest examples of that. In many cities, art is something you go see once in a while. In Santa Fe, art's part of the atmosphere. Canyon Road is the obvious example, but it goes far beyond Canyon Road. The city is full of makers, collectors, museums, public art, design, craft, and a deep respect for beauty that shows up in ordinary life. And the same thing is true with food. New Mexican cuisine is not just a regional option on a menu here. It's part of the identity of this place. Chili is not a gimmick. It is our culture. It is our memory. It is local language. Santa Fe still has shared references like that. And in a time when so many places feel fragmented, that kind of coherence is powerful. Even the annual traditions tell you something. Zozobra, Indian Market, Spanish Market, the Opera, the holidays on Canyon Road and around the plaza. These are not random events dropped onto a calendar to create activity. They're part of the city's rhythm. They shape the year. They remind you that Santa Fe is not just someplace scenic, it's someplace lived. And that is really the point. Santa Fe feels different because it still has that center of gravity. It still feels rooted. It still feels specific. It still feels like a place where history, culture, architecture, food, art, and daily life are all in conversation with each other. That does not mean that it's for everyone. In fact, its specificity is exactly why it's not for everyone. But for the people who can connect with it, that depth becomes one of the biggest reasons they stay. Because Santa Fe is not just a pretty backdrop for a new chapter. It's a city with identity. And when that identity lines up with someone who is looking for it, it can feel a lot less like a move and a lot more like a place they were meant to find.
Now let's talk about the part of moving to Santa Fe people usually do not understand until they're actually here. Because every city has a version of this. The things that looked charming, easy, or abstract from a distance, and then become very real once they are part of your everyday life. And in Santa Fe, there are a few of those. The first is altitude. Santa Fe sits at roughly 7,000 feet, and that is not just a fun fact. Your body is gonna notice. And if you're coming from sea level or lower elevation, the first few days can feel humbling. You might feel more tired, you may get out of breath faster than expected, and you may realize that your normal glass of wine hits you just a little bit harder, and your normal level of hydration is not gonna be enough. Most people adjust fine, but it's something to respect. Santa Fe is beautiful, but it does not let you forget where you are. The second thing that catches people off guard is allergies. Now, a lot of people hear high desert and think clean air, crisp mornings, no problems. And most of the year, that air here does feel incredible. But then juniper season shows up, the wind starts moving pollen and dust around, and suddenly you understand why locals talk about allergy medication like it's part of a basic home setup. It is manageable, but it is real. Then there's the pace. And this one matters because it sounds appealing until you actually have to live inside of it. People move here because they want life to slow down, and Santa Fe absolutely does that, but that slower pace is not selective. It is not just slow when you're on the patio enjoying your margarita. It can also be slow when you're waiting on that callback, trying to get a contractor scheduled, dealing with city processes, or hoping something gets done on your timeline. Santa Fe has what locals lovingly call land de mañana energy, and depending on your personality, that can either feel extremely charming or like a spiritual exercise that you did not sign up for. The truth is this: people who do best here are usually the ones who stop fighting that rhythm and learn how to work within it. Add more buffer time. Expect some things to take longer. Understand that the speed is not really the city's highest value. Another thing that surprises people is nightlife, or really the lack of big city nightlife. Santa Fe has great food, good bars, live music, community events, and cultural programming. But if what you want is endless late night options, packed clubs, that is probably not what's going to get you here. Santa Fe is more about intention than volume. People go out, but they usually go out for something specific: a dinner, a show, a concert, an event. It is less random, less constant, and more relationship based. For a lot of people, that feels better. For others, it feels quiet. Then there is water and maintenance, which many buyers underestimate. Santa Fe is high desert, and the city lives accordingly. Water matters here, landscaping matters here, irrigation systems, acequias in some areas, winterizing, stucco, upkeep, roof maintenance, wood care. All of that is part of home ownership in a way that's very different from where you might be coming from. And if you're buying in a historic district or older part of town, building rules and design guidelines can be way more challenging than people expect. Santa Fe protects its character very intentionally, which is a big reason it still feels like Santa Fe. But it also means you do not always get to remodel or alter things casually without checking what actually applies to the property first. None of these things are deal breakers, and that's the important part. They are just part of the reality of living here, and reality matters because Santa Fe is one of those places that tends to reward people who arrive clear-eyed, people who understand the beauty, but also understand the rules, the pace, the climate, the trade-offs, the quirks, and honestly, that is true of most great places. The point is not to find a city with no friction, because that doesn't even actually exist. The point is to understand whether friction here feels worth it to you, because for a lot of people, it absolutely does. But before you decide that, the next thing to really understand is, what does it actually cost to live here?
Now let's talk about the part of moving to Santa Fe people usually want the clearest answer on, and that's cost. Because no matter how much you like a place, it still has to make sense financially. Not just emotionally, not just visually, not just on vacation. It has to make sense in your real day-to-day life. And Santa Fe is one of those markets where people are often a little surprised in both directions. On one hand, yes, Santa Fe is expensive by New Mexico standards. If you're comparing it to Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Placitas, or many other parts of the state, Santa Fe is going to feel noticeably higher, especially when it comes to housing. But on the other hand, if you're coming from places like Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Denver, Boulder, Austin, Dallas, Phoenix, Chicago, or somewhere in the Northeast, Santa Fe may not feel expensive in the way that you expected. It may feel selective. It may feel lifestyle driven, but not necessarily outrageous compared to the markets many relocation buyers are coming from. And that's a key distinction. Now, Santa Fe is not cheap, but it is also not expensive for no reason. This is a lifestyle market. People are choosing to be here. They're paying for beauty, culture, identity, access to the outdoors, architecture, and a way of life that feels more intentional than what they are leaving behind. So the pricing here reflects that. Housing, again, is the center of this conversation, with a median sales price of $715,000 in 2025. Now that's the part that sets the tone for everything else. If you're buying, that is where the biggest financial hurdle usually is. And if you're renting first, Santa Fe is not an especially cheap rental market either. Comfortable rentals and good locations can add up quickly, especially if you want something furnished or something with charm. So when people ask, how much do I need to live comfortably in Santa Fe? The honest answer is not a single number. It depends on margin. It depends on whether your housing costs leave room for your actual life, because Santa Fe is a place meant to be experienced. Restaurants, art, patios, farmers market runs, community events, skiing, hiking, travel, all of that is part of why people are moving here. And if your housing payment stretches you so far that you can't enjoy any of that, then even a beautiful house can start to feel heavy. Now, that's why we usually encourage people to think less about what they can technically qualify for and more about what will let them live comfortably here. Not tightly, comfortably. Then once you get past housing, the day-to-day costs are often way more manageable than people think. Groceries tend to run a little above average, but not wildly so. Dining out can get expensive, especially if you lean into the better restaurants, cocktails, and regular patio dinners, which Santa Fe has a really good way of encouraging. Gross receipts tax does add up, tipping adds up, and a quick dinner out here can very easily become more of a full experience than you might have planned for. Utilities are usually pretty reasonable, though that depends on the home. Older adobe homes can actually perform very well because of the thick walls. Newer homes with refrigerated air may feel simpler to some buyers. Homes on natural gas usually have a different utility profile than homes outside of town on propane. So a lot of this depends less on Santa Fe in general and more on the specific property and location. Property taxes are one area where many relocation buyers are actually pleasantly surprised. Compared to a lot of the markets people come from, they're still relatively low, below 1%, and that can help offset some of the higher purchase price over time. But then there are the costs that people forget to plan for: closing costs, insurance, HOA dues in certain communities, stucco maintenance, roof inspections, seasonal cooler servicing, rural systems like wells, septic tanks, propane, road maintenance, or snow removal if you're outside of the city limits. And then the moving costs themselves, which can easily become their own major category, especially if you're coming cross country. That is why the smartest way to think about Santa Fe is not just can I afford the house, it's can I afford the version of life I actually want once I get there. Because Santa Fe makes the most sense for people who are financially prepared enough to enjoy it, not just survive it. And when that part is aligned, the city tends to feel worth it in a way that spreadsheets alone don't fully capture. But once you understand the cost of living, the next thing to understand is how the housing market here actually works, because that catches a lot of people off guard too.
Once people understand the cost of living, the next question is usually about the market itself. And this is where Santa Fe can really confuse people because lifestyle feels slow, but the real estate market does not always behave that way. Santa Fe is not a market you understand well just by looking at one headline, one average price, or one national article about housing. It's much more specific than that. The first thing to understand is that Santa Fe is a selective market. Not every home is moving quickly. Not every price point behaves the same. Not every neighborhood feels equally competitive, but the right homes, the ones with good light, good location, strong layout, usable outdoor space, and pricing that actually makes sense, those can still move very fast. And that is why this market catches people off guard. From the outside, it can look calm, and in some ways, it is calmer than the frenzy years. Buyers generally have more time than they did a few years ago. There is more room for inspections, more room for negotiation, and more room to think. But that does not mean that you can assume every good opportunity is just going to sit there waiting for you, because Santa Fe tends to operate at two speeds. The average house might take a while, the right house will not. And that is very important to understand. One of the best ways to understand the market is through months of supply, which is really just a simple way of measuring balance. It tells us how much inventory is available relative to how quickly homes are selling. And right now, Santa Fe is in a much closer to a balanced market than a frenzy market. Now, that's good news for buyers and sellers. For buyers, it means you generally have options. You're not walking into the same kind of panic environment we saw during the peak years where everyone was waiving inspections, rushing to make decisions with no time to breathe. That was no fun at all. Now, you can be more thoughtful now. You can compare homes. You can negotiate where it makes sense. But balance does not mean weakness. It does not mean prices have collapsed. It does not mean sellers have no leverage. And it definitely does not mean that the best homes stop attracting strong interest. For sellers, it means the market still supports value, but it no longer carries unrealistic expectations the way it once did. Overpricing gets exposed faster. Conditions matter. Presentation matters more than ever, and strategy matters the most. This is really the story of Santa Fe right now. The market is more honest. The honest markets are actually healthier. They reward buyers who are prepared, and they reward sellers who are realistic. Another thing that makes Santa Fe different is that it's not primarily driven by job relocation or pure economic necessity. A lot of the demand here is lifestyle demand. People are choosing Santa Fe on purpose. They are moving here because they want to, not because they have to. That creates a different kind of buyer psychology. People care a lot about location, the feel, livability. They care about whether a house feels like Santa Fe or not. They care about whether daily life will actually work there. Prestige alone is not enough. A big house in the wrong location or with the wrong layout can underperform. A more modest house in the right location with the right feel can get real attention. And that's why I always say Santa Fe is not just about price, it's about positioning. You are not only buying square footage here, you are buying light, setting, rhythm, and lifestyle fit. And that is also why negotiation has to be approached carefully. Yes, buyers often have more room to negotiate than they did during the peak years, but if you come in too aggressively on the wrong property, especially a good property that's priced reasonably, you can still lose it. Some sellers here are highly motivated, others are not under any pressure at all. So understanding the property, the competition, and the seller's situation matters. This is not a market where the same strategy works on every single house. So if you want the cleanest way to think about Santa Fe real estate, here it is. It's slower than a frenzy market, but more selective than people expect. You usually have time to think, but not unlimited time. You often have room to negotiate, but not on everything. And the homes that really line up with what people want here can still create competition very quickly. And that's how the market actually works. And once you understand that, the next step is understanding where you're going to live inside of Santa Fe, because in this city, location changes the experience more than anybody would expect.
All right, now that you understand the market, the next thing that becomes really important is location. And in Santa Fe, location is not just about resale or convenience, it's about lifestyle fit, because this city changes a lot depending on where you are. Two people can both say they live in Santa Fe and be having very different daily experiences. One, maybe walking to coffee, dinner, and the farmer's market. Another might be sitting on a portal with mountain views and total privacy, 10 or 15 minutes from town. Another may be out in El Dorado with more space, a different rhythm, and a stronger sense of separation from the center of the city. And none of those things are wrong, they're just different versions of Santa Fe. And that's why we always tell our buyers that in Santa Fe, choosing the area is really choosing the lifestyle. If you want to be close to the cultural center of the city, the walkable core matters a lot. Areas like South Capitol, the Rail Yard District, historic East Side, and parts of Casa Solana all offer a more connected in-town experience. You're closer to restaurants, galleries, the plaza, the farmer's market, and the kind of day-to-day routine where you can leave the house and feel plugged into the city quickly. And that version of Santa Fe tends to appeal to people who want convenience, charm, and a more texture built into their normal week. Then you have areas that feel a little more elevated, scenic, or tucked into the edge of town. Places around Museum Hill, Sierra del Norte, Hyde Park Road, and Monte Sereno, they start to give you more views, more topography, and a stronger connection to the natural setting. These areas can feel quieter, a little bit more removed, but you are still very connected to town in practical terms. And that works really well for people who want beauty and peace without feeling isolated. And then there's another version of Santa Fe that pulls in a lot of relocation buyers, and that's the space and privacy version. Tesuque is a classic example. Las Campanas is another. Aldea can also speak to buyers who want a little more breathing room and a slightly different rhythm of life. And these areas start to feel more open, more private, and in some cases more luxury oriented. You may get larger lots, stronger views, more separation from neighbors, and a greater sense that home is a retreat. And that appeals to a lot of second home buyers, lifestyle buyers, and people leaving denser feeder markets like Los Angeles, Dallas, Orange County, or the Bay Area, who want Santa Fe to feel meaningfully different from what they're leaving. And then you have areas like El Dorado and Rancho Viejo, which offer their own version of value and livability. El Dorado in particular attracts people who want more land, more sky, and often more house for the money, while still being within reasonable drive to town. Rancho Viejo gives a different kind of ease and can work well for buyers who want something practical, newer, and more straightforward. And the point is not that one area is better than another. The point is that each area solves for something different. And that's why we always try to move buyers away from the question, what's the best neighborhood, and more towards the question of what kind of daily life do you want? Do you want to walk more? Do you want to drive less? Do you want restaurants and culture close by? Or do you want views and privacy? Do you want lock and leave simplicity? Do you want more land, more quiet, or more value? Because once you get really honest about those answers, the map starts to make a lot more sense. And this matters because a lot of relocation buyers focus first on the house and second on the area, when really it should probably be the other way around. The right house in the wrong area can wear on you. The right area can make even a more modest house feel like a really good decision. And that's especially true in Santa Fe, where so much of the lifestyle comes from what surrounds the house: the proximity, the rhythm, the views, the access, the feel of the neighborhood itself. So when you're choosing where to live in Santa Fe, you're not just choosing an address, you're choosing your version of Santa Fe. And once you understand that, the next big decision becomes way more clear, which is whether you want to live in town, near town, or farther out. Because in Santa Fe, that changes ownership a lot more than you might expect.
Once people start narrowing in on areas, the next decision usually gets much more specific. Do you want to live in town, near town, or further out? And in Santa Fe, that question matters a lot because 10 to 20 minutes can completely change the ownership experience. This is one of the biggest things relocation buyers underestimate. From a distance, it can all sound close enough, right? And geographically, it usually is. Santa Fe is not a giant sprawling metro where being 15 minutes away means you have to vanish into another universe. But practically speaking, the farther you move away from the center of town, the more the systems, the responsibilities, and daily rhythms of ownership, they start to change. If you live in town, life is generally simpler. You are more likely to be on city water, city sewer, natural gas, more standard utility setups, more established roads, and easier access to services. If something needs attention, it's usually more straightforward to deal with. Deliveries are easier, service providers are easier, snow removal is less of a personal event, and the overall ownership experience tends to feel more predictable. Now, that appeals to a lot of people, especially if they want convenience, lock and leave ease, or a lifestyle where the house supports their life without creating too many extra moving parts. But once you move further out, Santa Fe starts offering a different kind of value. More land, more privacy, more sky, bigger views, more separation, a stronger feeling of quiet. And for a lot of buyers, that's exactly the point. People coming from denser places like Los Angeles, Orange County, Dallas, or the Bay Area, they often want Santa Fe to feel meaningfully different. They do not just want a prettier house, they want space, they want calm. They want the feeling that a home is a retreat instead of one more stop in a crowded environment. And rural or semi-rural living absolutely delivers that, but it comes with different systems. Outside city service areas, you may be on propane instead of natural gas. That changes your heating costs, especially in the wintertime. You may be on a well instead of city water. Now, that's not automatically a problem, but it does mean you need to understand flow rate, equipment, maintenance, and inspections more carefully designed for wells. You may have a septic system instead of city sewer, which is very normal here, but it is still another system to understand and maintain. You may have longer driveways, private road agreements, or more responsibility for your own snow removal and road upkeep. Now, none of that is a reason not to live further out. It's just a different ownership profile, and I think that the cleanest way to explain it, rural living in Santa Fe is not worse. It's just more intentional. You're trading some simplicity for more space, more privacy, and often more atmosphere. And that trade makes perfect sense for a lot of people. But it should be made consciously, not romantically, because it's so easy to fall in love with the views, and then you forget to ask, how the heck is the house heated? How are the roads maintained? What winter access actually feels like? Or what happens if something needs service quickly? That is why this part of the decision matters so much. In town, you're usually buying convenience with character. Farther out, you're often buying freedom with more responsibility. And there's also a middle ground, which is where many buyers end up happiest. Areas that feel peaceful, a little bit removed, but still keep you close enough to run errands around town. Dinners, appointments, and daily logistics that just stay easy. That middle zone can be a great fit for buyers who want some quiet and some views without fully stepping into a more rural ownership experience. So when you're deciding between city living and rural living in Santa Fe, the real question is not just how much land do I want, it is how much ownership complexity am I actually comfortable with? Because once you answer that honestly, the right choice usually becomes much clearer. And once you understand the difference, the next thing to get clear on is whether Santa Fe actually fits your personality, your priorities long-term, because that is where the real yes or no starts to show up.
At a certain point, once you understand the lifestyle, the costs, the market, and the different parts of town, the question starts to get a lot simpler. Not easier, but simpler. Is Santa Fe actually a good fit for you? Because this is where a lot of people get stuck. They try to decide whether Santa Fe is good in some universal sense, when the better question is whether it matches the kind of life you actually want. And that's a much more useful way to think about this. The Santa Fe tends to work really well for people who value quality of life over speed. If you want a place with beauty built into daily life, if you want real culture, if you want access to the outdoors, if you want a city with history and identity, and if you want your normal week to feel a little less rushed and a little more intentional, then Santa Fe can be an incredible fit. It also tends to work really well for people who are moving here by choice rather than by necessity, though both are doable. People who are saying, I want a different rhythm, I want more character, I want to enjoy where I live more, I want to feel connected to a place that actually has substance. Now, that is where Santa Fe is very strong. It works well for buyers who appreciate architecture, food, art, nature, and a city that does not feel generic. It works well for people who like the idea of a more selective social life rather than a constant one. It works well for people who do not need everything to be louder, faster, newer, and bigger all the time. And it works especially well for people who understand that a place can have trade-offs and still be deeply worth it. Because Santa Fe absolutely has trade-offs. The pace is slower, cost of living is not low, the housing market can be selective, nightlife is limited compared to bigger cities, contractors and timelines can test your patience, allergies are real, altitude is real. Ownership here can require a little more awareness than people expect, especially if you're dealing with stucco, flat roofs, rural systems, or older homes. But for the right person, those things feel like part of the agreement, not a betrayal. They feel manageable because what the city gives back is meaningful. Now, on the other side of that, Santa Fe tends to be a harder fit for people who want speed above all else. If you need constant stimulation, endless nightlife, instant convenience, cheaper housing, or the kind of city where everything feels optimized for efficiency, Santa Fe is going to feel frustrating. If you want a totally generic suburban experience where the house is newer, the systems are simpler, and the city asks very little of you culturally or emotionally, there are definitely places that are going to do better than Santa Fe for you. Santa Fe has a real personality. A strong personality is part of the value here, but it also means that the city is not neutral. It asks something of you. It asks that you appreciate the pace, that you respect the place, the culture, that you understand the city is not trying to become something just to make itself easier to consume. And that's why I think the people who do best here are usually the ones who arrive curious. They're not trying to force Santa Fe to be a smaller version of Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, or LA. They're open to letting Santa Fe be Santa Fe. And when that happens, this city tends to open up to them. Because then the slower pace starts feeling restorative instead of inconvenient. The cultural texture starts feeling rich instead of unfamiliar. The routines start becoming enjoyable. The differences start becoming the point. So when people ask, who is Santa Fe really right for? I think the cleanest answer is this. It's right for people who want depth over speed, identity over convenience, and quality of life over constant motion. It's usually not right for people who want the easiest, cheapest, fastest version of everything. And that's okay. The goal is not to convince everyone to move here. The goal is to help the right people recognize themselves in it. And if you're still watching at this point, the last thing to talk about is how to move here smart. Because once Santa Fe does feel like a fit, the way you make that move matters a lot.
Now, once Santa Fe starts to feel like a real possibility, the final question is not just whether you should move here. It is how to do it well, because a smart move to Santa Fe is usually not about moving the fastest. It's about moving the clearest. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They fall in love with the idea of Santa Fe, find one charming house online, and start trying to force certainty before they have really gotten clear on how they want to live here. That usually leads to friction. The smartest moves we see are the ones where people slow down just enough to get the important things right. The first step is getting clear on your version of Santa Fe before you start chasing houses. Do you want to walk more, drive less? Do you want to be closer to the plaza, Canyon Road, the rail yard, and restaurants? Do you want more privacy, more land, or more sky? Do you want lock and leave simplicity? Do you want a second home feel, a full-time local feel, or something in between? Those questions matter more than people think, because if you get the lifestyle part wrong, the house usually is not going to save you. The second smart move is understanding total costs, not just the purchase price. That means looking at insurance early, looking at utilities, looking at HOA fees, if there even are any, looking at maintenance items, looking at taxes, looking at whether you are in town or outside of town and what that actually changes, looking at whether the home is going to feel light and manageable after closing, not just whether you can technically afford it on paper. Because in Santa Fe, comfort matters. This is a place you are supposed to enjoy. If the numbers are too tight, the city can start to feel heavier than it should. The third smart move is preparing like a serious buyer before the right house shows up. This market is more balanced than it used to be, but the best homes, they still move. So the goal is not to rush around blindly. The goal is to be calm and ready. You have to know your financing. You have to know your cash position, know your ceiling, know your non-negotiables, know what you're flexible on, know what kind of inspection issues you're comfortable with and which ones change the deal for you. That way, when the right house appears, you're not trying to figure out your entire strategy in real time. You're simply making a decision. Another really smart move, especially for our relocation buyers, is giving yourself permission to learn the city before you overcommit. For some people, that means visiting multiple times with intention, not as a tourist, but as someone studying daily life. Go to the grocery store, drive the neighborhoods, sit in traffic, or what passes for traffic here anyways. See what the city feels like in the morning, in the afternoon, in different seasons, and in the areas that you think you like. For some buyers, it may even mean renting short-term first. A 1 to 3 month furnished rental can be a very smart way to pressure test your assumptions before buying. Not everybody needs to do that, but for the right person, it can create a lot of clarity very quickly. And then finally, buy for livability, not just the charm. Santa Fe has a lot of charming houses. That is not the issue that we see. The issue is whether the home actually works for your life. Does the layout make sense? Does the location match your routine? Does the house feel manageable? Does it support the version of Santa Fe you are actually moving here for? Because the smartest buyers here are not just buying beauty. They're buying ease, flow, fit, long-term livability. And that is really the point. Moving to Santa Fe smart means choosing with clarity instead of just with momentum. It means matching the house to the life, not just the fantasy. And it means understanding that when you get the fit right, Santa Fe can be one of the most rewarding places you could choose for the next chapter of your life.
Well, if you made it this far, you're probably not casually curious about Santa Fe anymore. You're probably trying to figure out what this would actually look like in your real life. Not just whether Santa Fe is beautiful, but whether it's the right pace, the right market, the right neighborhood, and the right fit for the way you actually want to live.
And that's really the goal of this video. It's not to sell you a postcard version of Santa Fe, not to hype it up to you, and not to talk to you into a move that isn't right for you. The goal is to help you see the city clearly, because when people make good moves here, it's usually not because they timed the market perfectly. It's because they understood the lifestyle, they understood the trade-offs, and they chose the version of Santa Fe that exactly fit them.
And if that's where you are right now, where Santa Fe is starting to feel real, and you want help thinking through neighborhoods, pricing, lifestyle fit, hidden costs, market strategy, or just how to approach the move intelligently, reach out.
If you're thinking about buying or selling in Santa Fe and want some guidance, send us a message. We're going to be happy to help you.
Let us be your guide.